I'm going to show you how I built this single pitch chicken coop. When building this chicken coop, I had 3 goals. Make it affordable, make it simple, make it safe. The coop is 20 square feet. It's 4 feet deep on this side and 5 feet across. As I'm explaining how I built this coop, please keep in mind that this meets my needs on our homestead for the amount of chickens we have. But the beautiful thing about any build, especially a custom build that you do yourself, is that it's scalable. You can scale up or down depending on your needs and depending on how many chickens you have. Let's get started from the ground up, and by the time this video is done, you're going to see how this entire chicken coop came from a whole bunch of boards and lumber all the way to what it is now. If you're interested in any of the tools and equipment that we use at our homestead to keep this place running strong, check out the links in the description below. This coop sits on 4x4 posts that are 2 feet off the ground. So if you purchase one 4x4x8, equally divide it into 4 sections, and that's going to make a post for each corner. Since the posts are touching the ground, they are treated. The other treated board is this ladder that allows the chickens to go in and out of the coop. Everything else is untreated lumber or plywood. I connected the posts using 2x3s. I use 2x3s because they're lighter, cheaper, and strong enough for construction builds like this. Then I strengthened the corners using 45-degree angles so it's really sturdy. Once all that was done and it was squared, now it's time to set a couple more 2x3s across the middle because we're setting this up to put a 1/2 inch flooring on, which is just typical plywood, and that's going to end up being 4 feet wide and 5 feet across, the same dimensions as the coop. Now we can start talking about the framing. Be careful when you frame so you know where the nest boxes are going to go. You can also plan for where the chicken coop door is going to go, as well as any ventilation. Please do that in advance. You'll thank me later for that one. To support the walls on the front of the coop and the back of the coop, I used 2x2s that went across, and that will also support the roof later on. I did not frame out the sides of the coop. You'll see why later. And with these 2x2s, it's plenty strong. Then I wanted to frame out the nesting boxes, and this was kind of just a random thing I did with leftover scrap lumber. I watched a couple YouTube videos online, put some things together, got out my finished nailer and my drill. I just started putting things together as I saw fit. I just want to make sure there were 3 nesting boxes that went with the coop because of the number of chickens that we have. When I frame the walls for this chicken coop, I need to keep a few things in mind first before I can start the framing. The first thing I need to keep in mind is where this chicken door is located. I need to make sure any wall studs for the framing were next to it, or at least off to the side of it. The next thing I needed to consider was this ventilation up here. I have a vent on the left, I have a vent on the right. Therefore, the wall stud went in the middle, which needed to be figured out before I could start the framing. On the back side where the nesting boxes are, and where the vent is up here, I also had to consider where that stuff was going to go. Because there is one vent on the back side of the coop, as you can see here, I was able to change up the framing by putting a wall stud here and here on the left and right side of the vent, as well as the corners, of course, on the left side and the right side over here. I also didn't frame up the sides of the coop because I wanted massive doors, one on either side, for easy clean out and easy maintenance if I need to go in the coop to do something. So if I were to frame the side over here and put studs right here, that would prohibit me from going in, or at least make it very difficult for me to get inside. I purposely used a really steep pitch on here so that any rain and snow would immediately fall off. Right now I have underlayment on the top of here, and underlayment is a synthetic material that you use underneath your shingles or the metal on the roof on your house. It holds up really well. It's very weather resistant. I've used underlayment on tops of wood piles for a couple years at a time, and they haven't faded. They haven't gotten weak at all. So this is actually a pretty good solution. It just staples on. I could put something else on here, but I had this on hand, and it's just a really easy product to work with, so I'm happy with it. The reason why this chicken coop is 5 feet across and 4 feet deep is actually because of the roof on top. Let me explain. The roof on the coop is exactly 6x6. This is leftover roofing material from a previous project I worked on a while back here on the homestead. So I needed to make sure that whatever structure I built underneath this roof was smaller than the square footage of 6x6, which it is. 6x6 roof, 36 square feet, 4x5 chicken coop, 20 square feet, so it works out. I made sure on the front of the coop that the metal roof hung over the coop on top of this lean-to, which we'll get to later, about 6 inches. Since the metal roofing is 6 feet long this way, and the coop is 6 feet long this way, it allows me to have plenty of overhang there and plenty of overhang on the back to help protect the nesting boxes. You can see on the back side how the 2x2s, these rafters I use for the roofing, hang over quite a ways past the coop over here. The key is to protect this weak point right here where the hinges are. But since I put 2 layers of trim here for the nesting boxes, the nesting box cover or lid actually goes up and under this trim on this side. So water's not really an issue. As an extra caution, I did put in 2x2 blocking right here in between these rafters. That also gives you another place to nail in this metal roof, and it makes it a little bit stronger so the metal roof doesn't bow down on top of the coop. And then obviously these 2x2s that I use as rafters holding up the roof are exactly the same length as the roof, a little bit shorter. Most lumber comes in 8-foot length. If this is cut to 6 feet, that means I've got a lot of leftover 2x2s. That's what I used to frame out a lot of the nesting boxes. If you see the 2x2s there, these 2x2s are just scrap lumber from the 2x2s I used up here from the rafters. The 2x3s I used were angled cuts that help support the roof on the nesting boxes. And then of course I just use 1/2-inch plywood for the siding of the coop on the nesting boxes and all over the place. For the siding I used 1/2-inch plywood, but not just any plywood. It was 4 feet wide and 8 feet long. The plywood I decided to use was the cheapest grade plywood I could find at my local store, and that's the plywood that they use for sheathing on roofs. That's the plywood that's going to go underneath your shingles or underneath the metal on the roof on your house. I found that to be the cheapest price and the most reasonable price, so I decided to use that on the chicken coop. Before I put the siding on the chicken coop though, I wanted to determine where the roosts were going to go. It gives you a lot more room to work with things inside the coop. Once you put the siding on the coop, you're going to find out that it's hard to get in there and work on things, even with these massive doors like this. The roosts I decided to use are just tree branches from our property. We have them all over in the woods. It's a free resource. It's a more natural resource. I used 3 of them. This is enough for the 13 hens that we have. I tacked them down with some nails, but prior to putting these branches in here, I needed to put some support. So I put a 2x3 over here going across the coop that way, just above the nest box entrances. Likewise on this side, I put a 2x3 from here over to there. That gave me a place to nail down these branches. There's just 1 nail on the end of each branch. Chickens don't weigh very much. It's pretty solid. It's going to stay like that for a long time, and the chickens really seem to enjoy them once they come in here at night for the roost. You can see the ventilation in the framing when it's all done. That would be the front of the chicken coop. And the back of the chicken coop has the single ventilation. Look at the hole up there, that light coming through with the corrugated roof. Having these holes in the corrugated roof, like right there and over there, also acts as another form of ventilation. If you're new to chicken coops, you want ventilation, especially because chickens cannot be wet. Chickens that are wet in cold weather or damp end up dying. It's not good for them. So they need to be dry. As long as they're dry and out of the wind, or at least have a place to go to get dry and out of the wind, they're fine, especially cold hardy breeds like the ones that we have. So making sure you have ventilation above the roosts, above where the chickens are, is key to having a dry coop that is safe for your chickens. For the sides of the coop, when I started to side this chicken coop, when I started to put the siding on, I took a 4x4 sheet of plywood, so half of a larger sheet of plywood that's 8-foot length. Half of a sheet of plywood on here for this side and this door, and half on the opposite side for these big clean-out doors. Once I had this on here, I just used a finish nailer to put it into my framing, but I needed to have something that the door could slam up against. I mentioned that I don't have any framing here, so it's easy to clean out the coop, but if you were to shut this door, you need that door to slam against something so it doesn't continue to pass through into the coop and cause problems with these hinges over here. So to solve that issue, I just framed out a little 2x2 structure here. It's super simple. Look at this one. It's like 2.5 inches long, a random white one up here. That way when you close the door, it has something to slam into, and the door stops and it does not keep going in. For the latch, it's just a really simple latch down here. You can get these anywhere. Super easy to use. and 2 basic exterior hinges on that side. The trim up here is really important because I put this trim up here. This is just a 1x4. I took my finished nailer and tacked it in, white exterior paint, and then white exterior caulk on the top. Not that water would get here because there is overhang from this roof, but if water was blowing sideways or something, I want to prevent it from going inside this door, and just putting 1 piece of trim on the top really does a good job with that. And with these 2 big doors on either side, it's a complete pass-through. I can take a push broom, sweep out the bedding from that side or from this side, or shovel it out either side. It really makes cleaning a lot easier. Let's talk about this lean-to structure right here coming off of the chicken coop. I knew that I was going to build a lean-to coming off the chicken coop because I had the extra parts for it. For example, this is just a tree I cut down on my property. It's about softball size in diameter. I wanted chickens in the winter time to feel safe going out when we have a lot of snow here in Wisconsin. I want them to have a place to feel safe for predators. I want them to have a place to go underneath the coop, which is why it's 2 feet off the ground. For the roof, I had some extra metal roofing from when I replaced the roof on our house years ago. And this is charcoal gray. It's the exact same color as the roof of the chicken coop, so that works out. When I cut this to the proper length, I think it's about 7 feet, maybe 8 feet away from the coop. That's the length of this roof. It happened to be, when I cut this and then connected the pieces of roof together, it was exactly 5 feet wide. I couldn't believe it. I put this roof together right here on this lean-to after I had built the coop structure, which is 5 feet wide. So it was the exact perfect fit. And I just love it when things work out that way. This is a shot from underneath the coop. I had to take off the top pieces of trim around this ventilation and just put a typical 2x4 right here with joist hangers. I like to use 2x3s when it comes to stuff like this. I need to use 2x4s because from that ledger board over there all the way to this post right here, it's too long in my opinion for 2x3s, especially if we get a decent snow load up here. All I did was tack a 2x4 to this tree right here and the same thing over there, and then run these across these joists here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, and they're about, I can see the blocking here is 18 inches, 18 and a quarter. So I put some blocking in there to give an extra place to nail down the roof and to give this a little bit more stability, as well as some blocking right here with 2x3s more toward the middle underneath the lean-to. And then I have the lean-to tucked in underneath the coop roof, a good, I don't know what that is, 6 inches or so. So there's plenty of overhang from the chicken coop roof to the lean-to to allow water to run down that way and off the end of the lean-to. The last thing I did to this lean-to was add a perch right here connected to either post. It's a simple 2x3 leftover lumber, and it gives the chickens to get off the wet ground if there's snow on there or it's raining. It also allows them to be here when it's raining because they're underneath this roof, or when it's snowing. It's 1.5 inches lower, the roof I'm talking about, on this side than it is over here. So everything that lands on the chicken coop roof up here runs down, goes onto the lean-to and out and over onto the ground over there. The reason why the roof is higher here and not here is because I propped underneath these 2x2 joists that support the roof a 2x3, and I laid it down sideways so it goes across back here. That props up the 2x2s, which obviously lifts up the roof 1.5 inches. So everything that lands on the roof as far as water is going to run down the coop, down the lean-to, and onto the ground out there. Keeping your chickens safe should be a top priority for you. My chickens, if they lay well, can each lay 250 eggs a year. So if I were to lose a chicken because my coop isn't set up right, it's not safe, something's gone wrong, I'm potentially losing 250 eggs per year, and you can multiply that by 3 or 4 years when they lay well. Speaking of chicken eggs, if you'd like to learn more about how to get more eggs from your chickens, watch this video right here next. Thanks for stopping by the Together We Harvest Homestead. We'll see you on the next one.